Senators are back on Capitol Hill today after they failed to agree on a near $2 trillion coronavirus relief bill. The economic rescue package is aimed at providing health care and economic aid to the U.S. as the nation struggles to grapple with the ongoing virus outbreak. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News Chief Congressional Correspondent Nancy Cordes. And Nancy, remind our viewers what exactly this Republican-backed bill calls for.
Well, it calls for a really massive relief effort across the economy for workers, for small businesses, for large businesses, to try to keep everybody afloat when the economy essentially has been shut down through no fault of their own. So for individuals, you've now got something that was negotiated over the weekend, what some are calling employment insurance on steroids. So if you've been laid off as a result of this crisis, the government would essentially keep you whole, keep you at your previous salary for up to 4 months. That is a major $250 billion change to this package. And then probably a lot of people have heard about these direct deposit checks that are going to be handed out to most low and middle income workers in this country, about $1,200 for anyone making up to $75,000 a year, and then another $500 for each of their children. So that's for individuals. And then for small businesses, you've got this huge $350 billion pot of money that would be used first to send out loans to a lot of these businesses with 500 workers or less. But then those loans would convert to grants if those small businesses use the money to keep their workers on, to pay them, to insure them, that kind of thing. So we're told by the authors of that part of this bill that it would help to keep these small businesses running for up to 8 weeks until we're hopefully out of the woods.
Nancy, what changes are Senate Democrats hoping to see in the stimulus package after blocking it yesterday?
So their biggest issue was with this $500 billion pot of money in the bill that would be handed out in the form of loans to major businesses, major industries. We're talking about the airlines and other big industries that have been affected by this sudden downturn. Democrats argue that the Treasury Secretary, Steven Mnuchin, would have too much discretion over who gets the money, how much, and that there isn't enough oversight looking at how these companies use this money, guardrails to say, okay, you can use it for this, but you can't use it for that. And so that was the biggest issue that Democrats had. There were several, but that was the big one. And Democratic leader Chuck Schumer and the Treasury Secretary spoke late into the night, past midnight, about this issue, and they're meeting again this morning. If they can iron it out, and Schumer said he thinks they are close, then we are still looking at the possibility that the Senate will vote on this massive package today and that it could pass.
How likely is it, do you think, that this gets done today, that Democrats and Republicans agree to a deal today?
Well, look, everybody realizes what the stakes are here. They know that every single day that goes by, you've got businesses laying off more workers, and the damage to the economy is getting deeper and deeper. As one senator put it to us this weekend, we're trying to rescue the economy, but in order to do that, you need to make sure there's an economy left to rescue. So everyone understands that time is of the essence here. They need to get a message to the markets and to businesses as quickly as possible that this money is going to be there. Don't lay off your workers because the federal government is going to come in and help you. So I think that that is something that is well understood by both sides. And let's face it, they've got some personal impetus to get this done as well. Everyone wants to get out of here. They realize that being amongst their colleagues kind of creates a petri dish. We're seeing more and more members of Congress report that they themselves have tested positive for coronavirus, so no one wants this to go on any longer than it has to.
Nancy, on that topic, Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, as you know, has tested positive for the coronavirus. So what else do we know about that today, and what precautions are being taken?
Well, that news really threw everyone into a state of turmoil here on Capitol Hill, because Rand Paul had been having lunch with his fellow Republican senators as recently as Friday. He was in the Senate gym as recently as yesterday morning and swimming in the pool. So that led a number of his Republican colleagues to make tough decisions about whether they themselves would now need to self-quarantine on the eve of this massive vote where you want everyone to be able to participate if possible. We now know that 5 senators at this point, and it could grow, have decided to self-quarantine, some of them because they had come into close contact with Rand Paul. Some had decided to self-quarantine for other reasons because they came into contact with someone else. But as far as how Paul himself contracted the virus, we do know that a couple of weeks ago he was at an event in Kentucky, a political event where 2 of the attendees later tested positive for coronavirus. He said he didn't come into close contact with them, but decided to get a test anyway, first of all because he was at the event, and second of all because he is in a higher risk group. You might recall that he was attacked by his neighbor a little over a year ago. He ended up having surgery to have part of his lung removed because his ribs were broken and his lung was bruised. And so, he's certainly somebody who has to be careful about his health, especially when it comes to a virus that we know can attack the lungs.
Nancy, lastly, are you hearing anything about shifting to remote voting in Congress?
At this point, I think that leaders are still hoping that they can get by without taking that step. Nobody really knows exactly how it would work technologically. They don't really have a system in place for doing that. Certainly in the Senate, if you have 5 senators who can't vote, who are self-quarantined, you can still go ahead and hold that vote. They can't weigh in, which is probably frustrating for them, especially on a vote of this magnitude. But that is what it is. If you've got 95 senators instead of 100 voting, that's not bad. The big question will come when this goes to the House of Representatives, where you've got more than 400 members who would all have to come back from various parts of the country and obviously putting themselves at risk by getting on airplanes and the like. I can tell you that the hope right now is that this bill passes the Senate with such an overwhelming margin from Democrats and Republicans that it then gives Nancy Pelosi the leverage in the House to try to pass this by something that's known as unanimous consent, where basically everyone agrees that they're just going to let this pass, that you don't have to have a roll call vote with everyone coming back. The catch is that if even one House member balks at that, if even one House member says, no, I want to be able to come and register my vote and register my no vote or my yes vote, then all that gets thrown into disarray. And so the message that they're going to be sending to anyone who might be thinking of trying to throw that wrench in the works is to say, think of the health of your colleagues, think of the safety of your colleagues, and think of the health of all of these communities that would rather not have a member of Congress or anyone else traveling around right now if they don't have to. But that certainly is a big question mark right now.